green and sustainable development as the pathway.
We all know awareness is the greatest agent for any change. Here comes Priyo Bangla, a non-profit community organization based in Virginia working to bring young minds and people together to raise awareness about activities regarding climate change. So, our goal is to leave no one behind as we tackle this global issue and help rebuild our green global nation, including our beloved Bangladesh. I am Rabia Akhtar Mil, and here with me is Ifat Haq Asha. We will be with you throughout the program. We would also like to hear from you. Please, you can share your thoughts via comments on the live link. প্রিয় সুধী, সবাইকে আমন্ত্রণ ও ধন্যবাদ জানাচ্ছি আমাদের আজকের ওয়েবিনারে অংশগ্রহণ করার জন্য। আমাদের আজকের ওয়েবিনারের বিষয় ক্লাইমেট চেঞ্জ, ক্যাটালাইজিং অ্যাকশন আওয়ার রোল। আমরা অত্যন্ত আনন্দিত যে আমাদের আজকের এই আয়োজনে আমরা যাদেরকে সাথে পেয়েছি। আমাদের সাথে থাকছেন মিস্টার Takis P. Karantonis, Arlington County Board Member, Mr. Anthony Piyush Gomez, and Mr. Piyulal Kormokar, Directors of Priyo Bangla Environmental Expert Dr. Jainul Abidin, Ms. Shahira Syed, AIDS Collaborative Community Organizer, New Virginia Majority Education Fund. এছাড়া আমাদের প্রধান অতিথি হিসেবে থাকছেন প্রফেসর সালিমুল হক স্যার, ডিরেক্টর অফ ইন্টারন্যাশনাল সেন্টার ফর ক্লাইমেট চেঞ্জ অ্যান্ড ডেভেলপমেন্ট, এবং প্যানেলিস্ট হিসেবে থাকবেন আশবিনা রহমান, ডক্টরাল ক্যান্ডিডেট, Environmental Engineering, George Mason University, এবং filmmaker, actor, and environmental activist Anila Guhonola.
আমি আমাদের ওয়েবিনারের পার্টিসিপেন্টদের অনুরোধ করব বক্তাদের আলোচিত বিষয়গুলো নিয়ে যদি আপনাদের কোনো প্রশ্ন বা মতামত থাকে তা ইনবক্সে অথবা ফেসবুক লাইভে কমেন্ট করে জানানোর জন্য।
Now, at the first, we would like to invite Mr. Anthony Piyush Gomez from Priyo Bangla in the studio. Mr. Gomez is one of the directors of the Priyo Bangla Community Organization. He has been involved deeply in community works for more than 3 decades and more than a decade in the Greater Washington metro area. He brings a world of experience in community development as well as literary publications as a writer and an editor. Also, he has been working as the editor-in-chief for a quarterly literary publication called Swedish Sholi since 2017, and the editor-in-chief for an online news portal, namely Bengali Herald. He brings a huge experience as a writer, editor, and special correspondent covering the community development and cultural news in various national news media and online portals. We would also like to hear how Priyo Bangla envisioned this climate change awareness program and the implementation model from Mr. Gomez.
Hello, everyone. Good morning, good evening, wherever you are. Happy holidays. Even though during this pandemic situation, celebration is different this year, but still life goes on. We are thankful to God we are still alive and will continue as we keep moving forward. I would like to thank you all for joining today's webinar on behalf of Priyo Bangla. To be honest, it means a lot. Your participation means a lot to us because it shows your support towards our project that we have undertaken, creating awareness on climate change issue. Even though on behalf of Priyo Bangla, we have been carrying on many different activities, programs throughout the year in support of Arlington County, Arlington Arts, ACE Collaborative, New Virginia Majority, and many other organizations. And we are trying to make our best to make a change in the community for positive impact. We're happy to share with you that along with various programs, we have undertaken this special project of creating awareness on the climate change issue because we feel that it's one of the most critical issues that's affecting our global environment. And it is actually acting silently, and many of us, we are aware of it, and still there are a lot of people out there who are not. And it's our responsibility to create awareness among those people so that they can join us to work together to protect this challenge, face this challenge, and protect our environment. We believe if we work together, we can make a change. We definitely can make a change, and we can face this challenge together. And also, we know that across the world, many different initiatives and efforts been taken by many different countries. A lot of efforts and initiatives and research work going on by different government, non-government, and many community organizations. But we would like to share that we all know that's not really enough. Even though we have been trying to take this project to create awareness, it's not going to be possible on our end by ourselves alone. We need your support. And we have to start from our home, from our own community, and then we have to spread around. We may not be able to solve the problem to a large extent, but we can play our role. No matter whatever small scale we start with, but the ultimate purpose is to help protect our environment. And no matter whether it's you or me or we all together can play a significant role in creating awareness and working towards the change in our community to protect our own environment. What we do today is actually going to be leaving impact on tomorrow. That's why we strongly feel to face this challenge, to work towards this critical issue of climate change awareness, we would continue our best efforts and we seek your help, your support on our journey. We believe we together definitely can make a change. And on behalf of Priyo Bangla, again, we are approaching you, requesting you, no matter wherever you are, whatever you are doing, just cooperate with us and do your role, play your role, and let us all together work towards protecting our global environment. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Anthony Pius Gomez, for your insightful speech. Now we have another director of Priyo Bangla among us, Mr. Priyolal Kormokar. Mr. Kormokar voluntarily served Bangladesh Center for Community Development as an executive director, cultural director, vice president, and president during the year of 2006 to 2011. Currently, he is serving the nonprofit organization Priyo Bangla as a chief executive director. He is also a founder of this organization. He is a director of FAMCASH, director of NRV Capital, CEO of P4 International LLC. Mr. Kormokar is also an advisor of many other nonprofit organizations. Now, we would like to invite him to share about Priyo Bangla Climate Change Awareness Program. Mr. Priyolal Kormokar.
Hello, hi, good morning, and then good evening, everybody. If you are in Bangladesh or anywhere in the world and here, happy holiday and happy new year. First of all, thank you so much, everyone, for joining this webinar about climate change. So I will not talk lots about climate change today, as we are last 3 months working with lots of our volunteers, community members, and then our board of directors working with other organization partnering. And then we prepare a lot of things, we research, we learn a lot, and then would like to present today. So we have a few honorable guests and keynote speaker who are very expert on this field and would like to learn from them, and we want to hear from them how we can process this project for next 6 or 7 months. Our main goal is to building a capacity and then bringing a youth leadership on the any issues, and especially in civic engagement, either you are staying in Northern Virginia or USA or anywhere in the world. Climate change is huge issue, and then we have to act individually And then, of course, we rely on some of the policies and then some of the big action from our government. So I would like to thank everyone who is working behind this project, especially the mainstream organization who is helping us for this project is the New Virginia Majority Education Fund and ACE Collaboration. And also our media partner, I would like to thank you for Time 24 TV. They are also live broadcasting from Bangladesh and the entire program. And then FM 786, Shohidullah Bhai or Oshanko Dhonnobad, এবং NRB Connect TV. I would like to thank Tarek Mehdi, who is PhD student in George Mason University. He's actually working behind day and nights to put this thing together, coordinating all volunteers, coordinating community members, coordinating with all expert research project and everything. He's doing it. I really appreciate it for his dedicated work, volunteering for this project. Also Bangladesh team, and then also I thanks all those special guests today. They are presenting today. And then from the New Virginia Majority, we have Ms. Saida Said, and then everybody joining in this group. I really appreciate it, and looking forward your support for next 6 months. And please do your action. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Priyolal Kormakar. Now, we would like to invite the Arlington County Board member, Mr. Takis P. Cantonis. Mr. Cantonis is an economist and urban planner with more than 25 years of urban and regional planning experience, who was elected to the county board in a special election on July 7, 2020. Since arriving in Arlington 14 years ago, Mr. Cantonis has been a civically engaged community leader. He is a member and former president of the Columbia High Civic Association. Since Priyo Bangla has a very close relationship with Arlington County, Mr. Cantonis has taken several community initiatives for last 9 years and had nationwide impact. We would like to know your thoughts on the importance of having climate change initiatives and how county can play a role in that connection.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me here today. I find it also very, very exciting that the organization like Priyo Bangla, like the New Virginia Majority, is actually hosting these events and is trying to raise awareness about what some call the climate change debate. I call it the climate crisis debate, as change is just an objective fact. Crisis is something that is has far more of a sense of urgency behind it, and actually everything that we know today indicates that it's past time to do something very effective about that. You have been following, I guess, the discussion over many, many years. For myself, it's correct. I was elected to the Arlington County Board this July. I followed the election was after the tragic death, premature death of Eric Gutschall, who was the previous county board in my seat. And I had one very important thing in common with Mr. Gutschall. We were friends, and we were friends because we were climate activists. And we could look back to a very long friendship on issues that have to do with protection of the environment and of shaping the city and shaping policies that would decarbonize and would address the issue of emissions. Of course, here in Arlington is a very affluent county in the United States of America. For those who are seeing us from afar, we constantly rank among the 10 most affluent counties in the country, in one of the most rich countries in the world. And that means, but we are very, very small. We're also the smallest county as an administrative entity in the United States of America. We are only roughly 240,000 people. here. In the United States, this is a small town. In the global context, this is a minuscule place. So we can discuss what we can do, because we can do a lot to tackle and face the climate crisis as it comes. When I was born in the late 60s of past century, the annual the CO2, the carbon dioxide charge in the atmosphere, is calculated to have been about around about 10 to 12 billion tons. Today, and we can very accurately measure that, is almost 40 billion tons. So during my lifetime until now, the main greenhouse gas, which is carbon dioxide, has a charge in the atmosphere has almost quadrupled, more than three and a half times more than it was back then. And we knew already back then that what carbon dioxide does and how it absorbs energy and fuels the greenhouse effect. In addition, back then there was very little methane in the atmosphere. Today we have record highs of methane in the atmosphere. Methane is 84 times more powerful than CO2, and we have a lot of other indicators that show that we are in a inexorable, unavoidable clash with the consequences already of global warming, which is what is summarized under the term climate crisis. Now, here in Arlington, almost every month when the county council, the county board is meeting, you will find some decision or policy item that has to do with decarbonizing, with improving efficiency, with doing all the right things to lower emissions. So, for example, last month in November, we had a comprehensive initiative to incentivize new buildings to be built, with significant improvements in their efficiency so that they are less emitting. But it was still an incentive, so it was not required to do that. Here in Virginia, and since Virginia New Majority is participating here, a lot of climate action is still more or less voluntary. We are asking still for things to be done, while we know that there is absolutely no alternative than to do that. So this is a political problem. And I believe that when you talk about building capacity, building awareness, creating the public dialogue that needs to go with tackling this problem, making sure that everybody understands that there really is no alternative to decarbonizing and to tackling the root causes of climate change is critical right now. Virginia's building codes are as old as 215. Some, especially emission-relevant codes, are 2009. For a developed country, this is actually not acceptable. This is beyond, this is not responsible to anybody else. Not to ourselves, and most importantly, not to those who climate change and the climate crisis are affecting the most. One conversation that we had here in Arlington and around Virginia a lot as of lately, and I find it a very good thing, is the issue of climate justice, on how the impacts of decades-long neglect of the climate and of environmental quality have impacted those who are the most vulnerable ones. You can figuratively imagine that as the proverbial coal power plant or a large petrochemical plant being built next to the poorest neighborhood or to the neighborhood with the lowest social standards in a place. This has happened in the United States hundreds of thousands of times. And that means that the health effects, the social effects, the economic effects of dirty production and a dirty old-style economy have impacted the most vulnerable first. So with the tackling of the climate crisis, we need to address also how to make it equitable and how to make up for these inequities. On the global stage, you've seen that the richest countries in the world talk about climate change in a far different way than, for example, the moderate and lowest income countries in the world. There is a blatant inequity in how different economies drive different solutions. As of when I was a student, and I studied in Germany, that is, late 80s, we really had a moment of massive decarbonization. The European economy was a very strong carbon-based economy. And all of a sudden, in the late 80s, we saw a rapid decline in the demand for carbon and the emergence of these new and very efficient technologies. But what happened then was that actually the carbon production moved into the new and cheaper place of production, which was Asia for the most part. It was not a decarbonization on a global scale. It was just a shifting from expensive Europe to dirt cheap Asia, Africa, and South America. This wasn't equitable, and this is why it didn't work on a global scale. The attempt to tackle decarbonization back then failed miserably, and since then we haven't seen a single year where we don't have an increase in CO2 emissions. Now you will ask, what can we do in a small county, in a small city like Arlington? And what we can do there are quite a few things, actually. First of all, we can do the classic, we can take out of the classic menu. For example, drive less with internal combustion engine vehicles, strengthen public transportation, improve the norms and the specs for new buildings so that they are energy efficient, net zero, etc., that they are fully electrified. We can do a lot to renaturalize our cities. That means, bring back parks and green and carbon sinks into the way we design a city and we pay attention. But most importantly, what we can do, and this is something we can actually lead in the world and show how this can be done efficiently, is to make sure that we build our natural environment as human beings, which are mostly cities, that we build them in a dense and very efficient way, where everything is close by and it's not spread around, so that we don't need to expend energy just for transportation purposes. So dense, walkable cities where all the services should be close by in a neighborhood. You may have heard the 15-minute neighborhoods that are now an intellectual experiment that is going on in Asia and in Australia and other places, where all services are close by, so that you don't have to, like in America, you have to take your car, to run 3 errands, you have to take your car 7 or 8 times. This is unsustainable, and this has to stop as soon as possible. The second thing that we can do, besides thinking about the design of our cities and the design of our very energy-intensive places, is to think about how to translate the actual cost of climate change for individual households, also for corporate and the larger economy. You've heard many people talk about carbon taxation. I think that this is a very good introduction into rebalancing an economy and making sure that everybody pays a monetized price for the pollution that they produce and for the consequences, and also for the mitigation that is right now needed. It also creates a pathway to what I called before an equitable scenario, for an equitable policy path to tackle climate change and reduce emissions. Because those who pollute the most, those who spend the most energy, they will also have to pay for mitigating their impact. And that, in a fair society, that can be translated into strengthening and improving the environmental footprint of all the rest of us, who are, of moderate and lower income, and who have right now absolutely no alternative than to use the cheapest available technology, which is mostly fossil fuel based. So in Arlington, we are, inspired by these thoughts, and we are trying, with your help, to be as assertive as possible in promoting these policies. I will repeat, though, in Virginia, the state of Virginia, like in most United States, some are further ahead from us, like California. But in the majority of the United States, all this is still voluntary. It's not compulsory. We don't have minimums, policies in place that are basically setting a minimum requirement for the industry, for the economy to follow. We need to progress towards a place, and I can tell you that as somebody who is, involved in local politics, we need to progress to a place where we can actually agree that a certain minimum that mitigates the very basic impacts of the climate crisis has to be compulsory. There is hardly any way around that on the medium term anymore. So I see great opportunity coming up. I see a new government in the United States that will hopefully rejoin the Paris Agreement, that will hopefully be not so reticent and problematic when dealing with emission control and with promoting policies that actually reduce emissions, that will be more assertive in putting the vast focus of the federal government into creating a new economy that creates jobs that actually reduce emissions instead of creating jobs that actually increase emissions. So the energy production is a very big question right now, solar, renewable energy sources, etc. But also the efficiency in transportation, the efficiency in buildings, and also taking all this and all the new technologies that will emerge and are emerging and will emerge, and create a fairer globe with technology transfers that enable other nations to be able to join the fight against the climate crisis. I don't believe that here in the United States we realize how important the impacts are already in several places around the world. We have only gotten a taste of what climate crisis means, and for our country, we still don't face the full consequences, while we know that there are. So I thank you for having me here. I'm very excited to participate and to hear and the the speakers that you have brought, and I hope that you continue with that. We will be with you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Cantonis. It was a very informative speech from you. Now, moving on, would like to invite Miss Shahira Said. She works for the ACE Collaborative Community Organizer, NVM Education Fund. This organization works to represent the Asian American and Pacific Islander communities to make sure that they can thrive together. Ms. Shaira is actively involved with Priyo Bangla Climate Change Awareness Program as a resource person. We would like to request her to share something about their work. Ms. Shahira.
Hello and salam, everyone. Thank you so much for having me here today. As you may have heard, I work with ACE Collaborative as a community organizer. And as you may know, we work with Asian American and Asian working class communities in Virginia. But to take a step back, ACE Collaborative is part of New Virginia Majority. And New Virginia Majority is a nonprofit that has been around for about 12 years. And our main goal is to build a conscious block of consistent voters to advance new politics that is democratic, just, and sustainable. We focus on many issues, but aren't limited to economic justice, criminal justice, environmental justice, housing, education, health, criminal justice reform, and immigration rights. ACE on its own, ACE Collaborative is relatively new. It's only been around for 3 years, and we work a lot with Arlington County, and we work with housing initiatives and specifically focusing around how it impacts Asian Americans. And so as a part of NVM, we work with community partners all the time, building a network of coalition, helping navigate and expand immigrant rights and initiatives such as working with Priyo Bangla and their climate change awareness program. It's not new to everyone that climate change is really important, and environmental policy and issues are very pertinent and real. It's also important to recognize how diverse and complex climate change is, but it's become evident from a lot of the research and surveys we've been doing recently and working with our community members here in Virginia that communities of color and immigrants of color are disproportionately targeted much more compared to their counterparts when it comes to climate-related issues and the lack of equity in climate change. So what we're doing with this project is that we recognize the importance of civic engagement and using our voices to push the agenda forward, specifically recognizing Asian Americans who are widely ignored from this narrative, and using our platform as New Virginia Majority to amplify these voices by working together and helping with these initiatives. So yeah, I'm really glad, and thank you for having me here. And I just wanted to say that I do think that it's really important that we're coming together to push for these issues because climate change is one of the most important issues of the decade so far.
Chief guest for this climate change
Thank
awareness
you.
and civic engagement webinar, Professor Salimul Haq. Professor Haq is the Director of International Center for Climate Change and Development, as well as Associate of the International Institute of Environment and Development in the UK. He serves as the chair of the Expert Advisory Group of the Climate Vulnerable Forum and senior advisor on locally led adaptation with Global Center on Adaptation, headquartered in the Netherlands. He is an expert in adaptation to climate change in the most vulnerable developing countries and has been a lead author of the third, fourth, fifth assessment reports of the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change. In addition, Professor Haq advises the least developed countries group in the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change. He was recognized as one of the top 20 global influencers on climate change policy in 2019 and top scientist from Bangladesh on climate change science.
Okay, dear viewers, I want to remind you that if you have any question or comments for Professor Salimul Haq, please comment on the live comment section. We will try to address your questions and comments to our guest later. Professor Haq, thank you so much for agreeing to join us today. First, if you can briefly tell us about climate change, its impacts, and why it is an important issue to address.
Thank you very much for having me, and greetings from Dhaka, Bangladesh. And congratulations to Priyo Bangla for organizing this session. I'm pretty sure that people listening to this program that you have put together don't need to be told what climate change is. It's such a huge problem. It's a planetary emergency that we have to deal with. So it's happening, it's real. It's happening because of human emissions of greenhouse gases, mostly from burning fossil fuels like coal, oil, and natural gas, but also from other kinds of gases. These have raised global temperature to just above 1 degree centigrade compared to pre-industrial, and we are headed to more than 2 degrees, possibly 3 degrees, unless we take very, very drastic action, which we have agreed to do. So the good news is that we have a global treaty called the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change. Under that treaty, 5 years ago, we came to an agreement called the Paris Agreement to take action to reduce emissions, to keep temperature below 2 degrees, if possible 1.5 degrees, which countries like ours in Bangladesh have been pushing for. At that time, the United States was represented by President Obama, and he very much took part in that. But then, unfortunately, since then, we had President Trump come to the White House and withdrew the United States. But then we have recently some better news, which is that President-elect Biden has said that one of the first things he'll do after he gets sworn in on the 20th of January will be for the US to rejoin the Paris Agreement. And he has appointed as former Secretary of State John Kerry, who was actually in Paris and who did the negotiations on behalf of President Obama to get the Paris Agreement. He's extremely knowledgeable. He's been appointed the climate czar or envoy from the US for President Biden. Very important step. Secretary Kerry is extremely knowledgeable, very adept at these issues. I'm sure that he'll bring a lot of expertise to bear. And at the same time, President-elect Biden has also appointed some very eminent people at the domestic level to bring in the United States into domestic action. But there's still a lot of catching up to do because we've lost 4 years under President Trump. So hopefully we will now move forward much more quickly than we have been for the last 4 years. But essentially, the climate change problem is the biggest existential problem in the world right now, and every country in the world and every citizen in the world now needs to be taking it seriously if possible.
Thank you, sir. And what do you think the impacts of climate change we will have in the future if we do not take action now?
Well, I mentioned the temperature increases. We have already seen temperature increase of 1 degree plus. And that has taken us, in fact, into a climate change world. So this year, 2020, we only have a few more days left of this year, 2020. It will almost certainly be remembered as the year of COVID-19 because it has had such a major impact. But it will also be remembered as the first year in which we are seeing unequivocally, credibly, human-induced climate change taking place. From the wildfires, the super wildfires that you've seen in Oregon and California, to the number of hurricanes you've seen in the Caribbean that hit Central America and the Louisiana coast, more than 30 hurricanes, never seen before the number of hurricanes, to super cyclones that we had in Bangladesh a few months ago in May. We had a super cyclone Amphan. There were super typhoons in the Pacific, super wildfires in Australia. These are all symptoms of the fact that we have raised global temperature by just 1 degree. If we raise it by another half degree, these will all get a lot worse. If we raise it by another 1 degree, they will not just be double, they will be quadrupled, even higher than that. So the impacts will be all over the world. particularly in the poorest parts of the world. Unfortunately, the poor are the ones who will suffer the most, and there are many poor people here in Bangladesh, and therefore it's very good that you are taking up this issue. You need to let the people of the United States know about the impacts that are taking place in Bangladesh, and you, as our uh, uh, Bangladeshi representatives in the US, need to be our voices there. I spent a lot of time in the UK, living in Britain. Uh, I work with the Bangladeshi diaspora in the UK. I hope I'd be very happy to do that with the Bangladeshi diaspora representatives in the US if you're interested in making the connection between US actors, activists, young people, and people in Bangladesh as well.
Thank you, Professor Huck. I want to know that is there any difference in effect of climate change in different parts of the world? How do the developing countries get affected, and why is that?
There are in terms of the impacts, the physical impacts, they are very similar. I mentioned hurricanes in the Caribbean, cyclones in the Bay of Bengal, typhoons in the Pacific Ocean. These are all the same phenomena. These are storms in the sea. We just call them different names in the different geographies. They have the same kind of impacts. But then you have to also take into account the places where they are hitting. So when, let's take the Caribbean, for example, when the typhoons, when the hurricanes in the Caribbean hit Central America, the last one hit Honduras and Nicaragua. The poor people living in Honduras and Nicaragua were decimated, were completely flooded out. And then it went and hit Louisiana, the coast of the United States. You had some strong winds, you had a lot of rainfall, there was some damage done, but people didn't die. In Honduras and in Nicaragua, they died. And so the circumstances of the locations where the same environmental impacts take place makes a big difference to how much harm they do, how much loss and damage they incur. And so for countries like Bangladesh, we have a large poor population. When we have a super cyclone, it causes a lot of damage, it causes a lot of loss of life, a lot of loss of agricultural product and infrastructure. However, I would say one thing: the loss of life in Bangladesh from cyclones has been brought down very, very considerably. We now have very good warning systems, cyclone shelters. I mentioned super cyclone Amphan that hit us in May. Super cyclones have hit us in past decades, and they have killed tens of thousands of people. Nowadays, they don't kill that many people. We only had a few hundred people die, and they were mostly fishermen who are out at sea, didn't get back to land in time. More than 2.5 million people got the warnings, went to shelters, and survived. So loss of life comes down, but still the damage is still there. The damage, the cyclone came, it caused a lot of damage. The thing that we have been able to improve is no longer people losing lives, but people lose their livelihoods a lot still.
Sir, what do you think are the steps we shall follow to combat climate change? Is there any sustainable approach for that?
Absolutely. There is absolutely something we can tackle, we can do. It requires political will from political leaders, but even more important than political leaders, it requires citizens to be active themselves. Every single one of us, and you, need to think about this issue. You need to figure out what it is that you can do. Everybody can do something, and then connect people around the world to take this issue. It's a global problem. We need to connect us across the world as global citizens and work with each other, collaborate with each other to make this problem go away, or at least tackle the problem and minimize its impacts. If we don't take action, the problem will be very, very big. It will be a crisis. It will be an emergency. A good example that I would encourage everybody to follow is the 16-year-old Swedish schoolgirl, Greta Thunberg, who just took action herself. She decided that every Friday, I'm not going to go to school. I'm going to sit in front of the Swedish parliament in Stockholm with a sign and that says this is wrong. Something must be done. And then other children gathered with her. And then now school kids from all over the world every Friday The whole world, school kids go on strike. In Bangladesh, we have a huge movement of Fridays for the Future school kids connecting across the world. That's the kind of activism we need from young people like yourselves in the US, connecting to young people in our part of the world, in Africa, in Asia, in Latin America, all over the world. It's a global problem. We need to be acting as global citizens, reaching out and working with each other going forward.
Sir, in your opinion, what role can the youth play in raising climate change awareness?
I think youth have the biggest role to play. Unfortunately, the older leaders that we had for the last 20 years, they didn't do enough. They listened to the problem, they heard the problem, they said, yes, there's a problem, yes, we should do something, yes, let's do something, but they move so slowly and incrementally that the problem has gone much, much faster than any efforts to combat the problem. And that's what Greta Thunberg's mission statement is. You have to listen to the science. The house is on fire. It's an emergency. It's a crisis. You're not dealing with it like a crisis. You're dealing with it as a sort of normal activity. You can do something, not do something, doesn't really matter. It matters. And so youth have to be the ones that take the lead. Youth have to be the ones that move the politicians to take action. And I must say, the United States is a very good example. If you look at the results of your election, President Biden would not have come in, not have been elected if the youth had not been organized and the youth movements had not been organized, and largely on climate change issue. Even Vice President Biden, when he was a candidate, was not a great supporter of climate change, but the youth made him change. He has now become a great supporter. That's a big win. We have got him on our side. He's now taking this very seriously. He's listening to the young people that voted for him, and we hope we can make them change. We make the politicians listen to us. And I say us, as I belong to the youth as well. I'm a teacher in a university. I teach students. I have very many young people. I have great faith in young people, and so I have faith in you as well.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much. Neem, your mic is off.
Your mic is on mute.
Okay, sorry. Thank you so much, Professor Huff. We would like to take some comments from our audience. So our first question from Sadaf Jahandina. She also wanted to know, sir, which country seems to be an example to you in protecting the environment?
Well, I'm going to mention Bangladesh as the example. And the reason is that in Bangladesh, we have known now for 10 years, more than 10 years, that we are one of the most vulnerable countries to the impacts of climate change. So the level of awareness of climate change in Bangladesh is extremely high. I would say higher than any other country in the world. Everyone in Bangladesh knows about climate change, Jalabayu Pariborton, Bangladesh shike আছে সব এগুলো. So we are aware of the issue. Not only are we aware, we are doing things about it. The government of Bangladesh has a national plan to tackle climate change. We have been implementing that plan. We have been putting our own budget, our own money into implementing that plan. And in particular, since we are one of the most vulnerable countries, we are looking at how to adapt better to the impacts of climate change, because we are going to be badly affected by the impacts of climate change. But that doesn't mean we sit down idly and just take it and receive it. We can take actions. And I mentioned already our experience on disaster risk reduction with cyclones. We have not stopped cyclones, but we have brought down the human lives lost from cyclones very, very considerably. And in fact, I would say we have the best cyclone warning system in the world, better than the United States. In the US, when you got hit by Katrina in New Orleans, more than 1,000 people died in the United States of America. In our country, though, that number of people don't die anymore from cyclones because we have a much better warning system. So similarly, we need to be adapting to the impacts of climate change, which we are doing, and we can teach the rest of the world, because the rest of the world is not ready to deal with the impacts of climate change yet. Everybody's going to have to deal with them and learn about doing them. I hope that answers your question.
Yes, sir, you did. Amazingly did. Thank you so much. It has been a wonderful session with you. Thanks for taking out time from your busy schedule and enlightening us with your knowledge and awareness about climate change. We hope to have you with, we hope to have you with us always with your Bangla Climate Change Awareness Program.
Happy
Okay, now
to engage later. Thank you very much.
thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much.
Bye bye.
Thank you, sir. Next, we'd like to invite Dr. Jonal Abidin to talk about the importance of contents in climate change initiatives. Dr. Abidin presently serving as President at Environmental Engineering Incorporation, Los Angeles, California, and working in civil and environmental construction and remediation since 1991. So, Dr. Abidin, could you shed more light on the importance of climate change content integration in education?
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much. And I consider this program by Priyo Bangla is superb and time-worthy. That's my impression, first of all. And also, I see some of you, when I see your faces, that you belong to the biggest group of the youth who are the action makers, action takers, change makers. If we can involve you, I guess we will be half done rather than anything else. Anyway, first of all, I like to agree with Professor Salimul Haq, who just mentioned there is a super fire in California, super cyclone in Bangladesh, super tornado in Caribbean. These super cyclones, fires, and tornadoes will keep on happening. And as a matter of fact, they have seen a rise in the occurrences and frequencies. So how do we cope with them? I really feel Bangladesh is on the cutting edge. Bangladesh government funding has increased, a warning system has improved, and people become very aware. As a matter of fact, you have seen in, I guess, couple of years or now, Bangladesh student had started some movement in Dhaka, warning drivers, police, and some people against certain activities, and that was very popular. And that brought Dhaka to a standstill, and everybody became aware. So the change makers are the youth. So you have to take initiative. Our students, our youth, those who are not yet entered into workforce, they have a lot of time, plus they have a lot of energy, and they can grasp the knowledge very fast. So that will be one of the important things. Now, we all who live in the United States, and I being in California is one of the cutting edge on environmental control and remediations, all in all these areas. You heard our Mr. Karantonis about that California is on the super hand. They are always on the cutting edge. They are always take proactive actions, but so far could not control fire yet. But the time will come, this fire will also subside someday. However, what I want to say that with the US EPA's, standing procedures, we can impact or share more knowledge, which is already available, more research-based knowledge or administrative action-based knowledge, which are available in the United States from US EPA, that we can share. Bangladesh is actually not a country with a lot of coal production or coal-fired power plant or energy-producing factories or manufacturing facilities. In that way, Bangladesh had some advantages. But recently, I have seen, I did work 1 or 2 years in Bangladesh, and I do get involved in some of the environmental projects in Bangladesh. I have seen there are power plant planning and power plant coming, and there is a coal-fired plant coming in Rupur and to the northern Bangladesh for power generation. So these plants were not in Bangladesh very much common. They were all, their energy was produced from hydroelectricity, from water, Kornopoli, and now there are other also, and other ways they are thinking, constructing dams and things like that. More and more rather than coal-fired power plants. If those areas could be banned, it will also help. And then we, on the other side, Bangladesh was one of the preferred or discussed country in the Paris Agreement. If you look into that, there was a feeling for Bangladesh quite a lot. So Bangladesh will be recipient of good feeling from all over the world. And they have, in many respects, they have become a role model now. So I think in these areas, with the U.S. new administration, Joe Biden administration, who are working on, who are coming back to the Paris Agreement or on the table, in world global table, I think introduction of John Kerry, who was another presidential candidate in the United States. So he has a lot of, I think he carries a lot of authority from the US administration to impact the world on global issues. I think, and also it will impact US funding mechanism will also play a role. I think all these things, we should be a good incorporator or input into the world arena. But most of all, I want to thank you people, Priyo Bangla, who has introduced this global awareness, creating from here and attracting knowledge-based expert and experiences, and trying to introduce in Bangladesh or come to some aid for Bangladesh. That's why I kind of find it is very attractive for me also to input into it. So we will see and we will work. We will keep our options open, and we will come in contact with more and more with many people in future. I guess when a specific project will come, and then we will build our input or our knowledge base content on all of those, so that we can really bring a real change and bring something, we can offer something applicable and time worthy and really utilizable. So I wish all the best of luck to all Priyo Bangla's this effort, and I also welcome all of these experts who are talking and who are giving input into this forum. I really appreciate this effort. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Abidin, for your informative speech. So, ladies and gentlemen, Priyo Bangla Climate Change Awareness Program has also formed a research team led by Tariq Mehdi and Roti Chakraborty. From this team, we would like to see how this kind of civic engagement projects help build awareness among communities. Now, members of the research team, Sadia Islam, Farhana, Nazifa Tabassum Bonna, will present about climate change and the youth initiatives in Bangladesh.
আসসালামু আলাইকুম সবাইকে। শুরুতেই স্বাগতম জানাচ্ছি আজকে আমাদের আয়োজনে। আমাদের আলোচ্য বিষয় ছিল ক্লাইমেট চেঞ্জ, অ্যানালাইজিং অ্যাকশন এন্ড আওয়ার রোল। আচ্ছা, আমাদের এই প্রজেক্টে এই কাজ করেছিল আমাদের রিসার্চ এন্ড ডেভেলপমেন্ট টিমের সকলে। এখানে রয়েছে আমাদের আজকে যেসব বিষয়গুলো নিয়ে আমরা আলোচনা করব এবং আমাদের আলোচ্য বিষয়গুলো। এরপরে রয়েছে আমাদের ভৌগোলিক বাংলাদেশের কিছু তথ্য। বাংলাদেশ হলো পৃথিবীর বৃহত্তম বদ্বীপ, দক্ষিণ এশিয়ায় অবস্থিত। আবহাওয়ার দিক দিয়ে তারতম্যের কারণে একে প্রধানত তিনটি ভাগে ভাগ করা যায়। প্রথমত উচ্চ তাপমাত্রা এবং বায়ুর আর্দ্রতা, এবং দেখা যাচ্ছে যে বাংলাদেশের দক্ষিণাঞ্চল ও প্রাকৃতিক দিক থেকে ঝুঁকিপূর্ণ হলো দক্ষিণাঞ্চলটা। এরপরে রয়েছে আমাদের বাংলাদেশের সাধারণ কিছু পরিবেশের সমস্যা। প্রথমত রয়েছে আমাদের তাপমাত্রা বৃদ্ধি। গত 4 দশকে 0.103 ডিগ্রি সেলসিয়াস তাপমাত্রা বেড়েছে বাংলাদেশে, এবং ধারণা করা হয় 2030 সাল পর্যন্ত প্রায় 1 ডিগ্রি সেলসিয়াস তাপমাত্রা বাড়বে। এরপরে রয়েছে আমাদের এক্সেসিভ রেইনফল। আচ্ছা, স্লাইডটা চেঞ্জ করা উচিত। এক্সেসিভ রেইনফলের মধ্যে বাংলাদেশের সাধারণ রেইনফল হলো 78%, এবং ধারণা করা হয় 2030 সাল পর্যন্ত 10 থেকে 15% বাড়বে। এরপরে রয়েছে খরা। বাংলাদেশের দক্ষিণাঞ্চল ও উত্তরাঞ্চলে কিছু জায়গায় শুষ্ক মৌসুমে এবং গ্রীষ্মকালে খরা দেখা দেয়। খরার সময় তাপমাত্রা হয়ে থাকে 40 ডিগ্রি সেলসিয়াস পর্যন্ত। এরপরে রয়েছে পানির মাত্রা বৃদ্ধি। আইপিসিসি থেকে ধারণা করা হয় ভৌগোলিকভাবে পানির উচ্চতা বাড়বে 18 সেন্টিমিটার, এবং বাংলাদেশ ন্যাশনাল অ্যাডাপশন প্রোগ্রাম অফ অ্যাকশন থেকে ধারণা করা হয় বাংলাদেশ উপকূলীয় অঞ্চলে প্রায় 3 মিলিমিটার পর্যন্ত পানির উচ্চতা বাড়ে প্রতি বছর। এরপরে রয়েছে আমাদের নদী ভাঙন। বাংলাদেশের সমভূমিতে প্রতি বছরই প্রায় 5% ভূমি নদী ভাঙনের শিকার হয়ে থাকে, এবং 492টি উপজেলার মধ্যে প্রায় 94টি উপজেলায় ক্ষতিগ্রস্ত হয়ে থাকে। এরপরে রয়েছে আমাদের লবণাক্ততা, যেটি হলো সুন্দরবন এবং দক্ষিণাঞ্চলে কিছু এলাকা এর দ্বারা প্রতি বছরই ক্ষতিগ্রস্ত হয়ে থাকে। এরপরে রয়েছে আমাদের জলবায়ুর প্রধান যে প্রভাবগুলো। ঢাকায় প্রতি দিনই প্রায় 1000 থেকে 2000 নতুন মানুষ যোগ হয়। এদের অভিগমনের মূল কারণ হলো আমাদের এই অভিগমনের মূল কারণ হলো আমাদের জলবায়ু পরিবর্তন ও প্রাকৃতিক দুর্যোগ। এরপরে রয়েছে আমাদের কৃষিকাজের উপর প্রভাব। কৃষিকাজের উপর মূলত প্রভাব ফেলে বন্যা, খরা এবং লবণাক্ততা। ধারণা করা হয় 2017 সালে প্রায় দক্ষিণাঞ্চলে 1,41,000 হেক্টর জমি বন্যার কারণে ধ্বংস হয়েছে, এবং বলা হয়ে থাকে যে 1973 সাল থেকে 2009 সাল পর্যন্ত দক্ষিণাঞ্চলের জমি প্রায় 27% লবণাক্ততা বৃদ্ধি পেয়েছে, এবং 1.1 মিলিয়ন হেক্টর জমি কৃষির অনুপযোগী হয়েছে। আচ্ছা, ধন্যবাদ সবাইকে। পরের স্লাইড গুলো প্রেজেন্ট করবে ফারহানা।
ধন্যবাদ সাদিয়া। পরিবেশ সংরক্ষণ এবং জলবায়ু পরিবর্তনের ক্ষতিকর প্রভাব হতে জনগণকে সুরক্ষা দেওয়ার জন্য বিগত দশকগুলোতে বাংলাদেশ বিভিন্ন ধরনের নীতি, পরিকল্পনা, আইন, বিধি ইত্যাদি প্রণয়ন করেছে। গণপ্রজাতন্ত্রী বাংলাদেশ সরকার ইউনাইটেড নেশনস ফ্রেমওয়ার্ক কনভেনশন অন ক্লাইমেট চেঞ্জ কনফারেন্স অফ পার্টিসের 7ম অধিবেশনের সিদ্ধান্তের প্রতিক্রিয়া হিসেবে 2005 সালে পরিবেশ, বন ও জলবায়ু মন্ত্রণালয় কর্তৃক ন্যাশনাল অ্যাডাপ্টেশন প্রোগ্রাম অফ অ্যাকশন ন্যাপা গ্রহণ করে। বাংলাদেশ প্রধানত উপকূলীয় অঞ্চলে জলবায়ু পরিবর্তনের অভিযোজনের প্রতি গুরুত্ব আরোপ করেছে এবং ন্যাপা কর্তৃক কৌশলগত লক্ষ্য নির্ধারণ করা হয়েছিল। ন্যাপা উদ্যোগের পরে বাংলাদেশ সরকার 2008 সালে বাংলাদেশ ক্লাইমেট চেঞ্জ স্ট্র্যাটেজি অ্যান্ড অ্যাকশন প্ল্যান গ্রহণ করে। নেক্সট স্লাইড প্লিজ। নেক্সট স্লাইড। মেইনস্ট্রিমিং ক্লাইমেট চেঞ্জ বিষয়টি হচ্ছে উন্নয়নের ক্ষেত্রে ক্লাইমেট চেঞ্জের ইস্যুগুলোকে আলাদাভাবে না দেখে উন্নয়নের অংশ হিসেবে দেখে বিভিন্ন ধরনের ডেভেলপমেন্ট প্ল্যানিং বা ন্যাশনাল ডেভেলপমেন্ট প্ল্যানস এর অবজেক্টিভ বা প্রসেসে ক্লাইমেট চেঞ্জ ইস্যুগুলোকে ইন্টিগ্রেট করা। নেক্সট স্লাইড। A framework for mainstreaming climate change. Mainstreaming climate change এক্ষেত্রে 3টি বিল্ডিং ব্লক কাজ করে। এক্ষেত্রে সবচেয়ে গুরুত্বপূর্ণ হচ্ছে an enabling environment. An enabling environment is a primary requirement for effective and sustainable integration of climate change. এক্ষেত্রে পলিটিক্যাল উইল এবং ইনফরমেশনাল সার্ভিস দুটি গুরুত্বপূর্ণ এলিমেন্ট। পলিটিক্যাল উইলে বিভিন্ন মন্ত্রণালয়, বিভিন্ন সচিব, ডিপার্টমেন্টের হেড এবং টেকনোক্রেটসদের সমন্বয়ে বাংলাদেশ ক্লাইমেট চেঞ্জ স্ট্র্যাটেজি এন্ড অ্যাকশন প্ল্যান তৈরি করে, এবং এর পরবর্তীতে এর উপর ভিত্তি করে পলিসি এবং প্ল্যানিং তৈরি করা হয়। এই পলিসি এবং প্ল্যানিং গুলা সপ্তম পঞ্চবার্ষিকী পরিকল্পনা এবং পার্সপেক্টিভ প্ল্যানে ইন্টিগ্রেট করা হয়। নেক্সট স্লাইড প্লিজ। বাংলাদেশ ক্লাইমেট চেঞ্জ স্ট্র্যাটেজি এন্ড অ্যাকশন প্ল্যান তৈরি করা হয় 2008 সালে এবং 2009 সালে এটি পরবর্তীতে সংশোধন করা হয়। এতে জলবায়ু পরিবর্তন মোকাবেলার কাঠামো বর্ণনা করা হয়। এটি একটি ওভারঅল ডেভেলপমেন্ট স্ট্র্যাটেজি ফর ক্লাইমেট চেঞ্জ অ্যাডাপ্টেশন এন্ড মিটিগেশন। নেক্সট স্লাইড। বাংলাদেশ ক্লাইমেট চেঞ্জ স্ট্র্যাটেজি এন্ড অ্যাকশন প্ল্যান 6টি স্তম্ভের উপর প্রতিষ্ঠিত, যেগুলোর মূল গোল হচ্ছে খাদ্য, নিরাপদ বাসস্থান এবং দরিদ্রতম ও বিপন্ন জনগোষ্ঠীর কর্মসংস্থান ইত্যাদির মতো মৌলিক সেবাসমূহের প্রতি নিশ্চিত করা, সমন্বিত দুর্যোগ ব্যবস্থাপনা জোরদার করা, বিদ্যমান অবকাঠামো যেমন নদী ও উপকূলীয় বাঁধ, ঘূর্ণিঝড় আশ্রয় কেন্দ্র এবং শহর এলাকার নিষ্কাশন ব্যবস্থা ইত্যাদি সংরক্ষণ, গবেষণা ইত্যাদির উপর জোরদার করা। নেক্সট স্লাইড। ইমপ্লিমেন্টেশন অফ বাংলাদেশ ক্লাইমেট চেঞ্জ স্ট্র্যাটেজি এন্ড অ্যাকশন প্ল্যান। এখানে যে ক্লাইমেট চেঞ্জ অ্যাকশন প্ল্যানের 6টি থিমেটিক আন্ডারে অনেক ধরনের প্রজেক্ট গ্রহণ করা হয়, সেগুলো বাংলাদেশ ক্লাইমেট চেঞ্জ ট্রাস্ট ফান্ডের আন্ডারে জুন 2018 পর্যন্ত এগুলো সম্পন্ন করা হয়। মূলত এই প্রজেক্টগুলোর মূল উদ্দেশ্য ছিল যেসব ফলাফল পায় সেগুলো হচ্ছে সাইক্লোন টলারেন্ট রাইস সিডস, ঘূর্ণিঝড় প্রতিরোধক ঘর তৈরি করা, তারপর অল্টারনেটিভ ইনকাম জেনারেটিং কোর্সের উপর উপকূলীয় এলাকার জনগণদের শিক্ষা এবং প্রশিক্ষণের ব্যবস্থা করা। এই সবগুলো প্রজেক্ট 2010 থেকে 2018 মাঝে সম্পন্ন হয়। নেক্সট স্লাইড। আগে বলেছি মেইন স্ট্রিমিং ক্লাইমেট চেঞ্জ বিষয়টি হচ্ছে ডেভেলপিং প্ল্যানে, যেমন বাংলাদেশের পার্সপেক্টিভ প্ল্যান 2010 থেকে 2021, তারপর সপ্তম পঞ্চবার্ষিকী পরিকল্পনায় জলবায়ু পরিবর্তন বিষয়ক বিভিন্ন ধরনের ইস্যুগুলো ইনকর্পোরেট করা হয়। সেক্ষেত্রে সপ্তম পঞ্চবার্ষিকী এই পরিকল্পনায় অ্যাডাপ্টেশন এবং মিটিগেশনের প্রতি জোর দিয়ে মোট 16টি ইস্যু তারা অন্তর্ভুক্ত করে। এখানে আমরা দেখতে পাচ্ছি ক্লাইমেট প্রুফিং, ইনস্টিটিউশনাল ম্যাপিং, স্টেক হোল্ডার এঙ্গেজমেন্ট, ক্যাপাসিটি বিল্ডিং, ক্লাইমেট চেঞ্জ রিস্ক, অপরচুনিটিস এন্ড ম্যানেজমেন্টের ক্ষেত্রে সপ্তম পঞ্চবার্ষিকী পরিকল্পনায় মেইন স্ট্রিমিং হয় 100%, 88.9%। এখানে সর্বোচ্চ স্কোর অর্জন করে সপ্তম পঞ্চবার্ষিকী পরিকল্পনা। এবং এক্ষেত্রে আমি একটা কথা বলতে চাই, অষ্টম পঞ্চবার্ষিকী পরিকল্পনার কাজ চলছে, যেটা বাস্তবায়ন হবে 2020 থেকে জুলাই 2020 থেকে জুন 2025 পর্যন্ত। এক্ষেত্রে 3টি বিষয়ের উপর গুরুত্ব দেওয়া হয় এবং 3টি বিষয়ের একটি হচ্ছে জলবায়ুর বিরূপ প্রভাব মোকাবেলা করা। পরবর্তী স্লাইড কন্টিনিউ করবে নাফিসা তাবাসসুম বন্যা। থ্যাংক ইউ।
থ্যাংক ইউ ফারহানা আপুকে। এখন আমরা বিশ্বজুড়ে মহামারী কোভিড-19 এর সাথে ক্লাইমেট চেঞ্জের কি ধরনের কোরিলেশন রয়েছে সে সম্পর্কে দেখব। নেক্সট স্লাইড প্লিজ। কোভিড-19 একদিকে যেমন সারা বিশ্বকে স্থবির করে দিয়েছে, পাশাপাশি পরিবেশের ওপরও বিভিন্নভাবে প্রভাব ফেলছে, যার ফলে পরিবেশের গুরুত্বপূর্ণ কিছু কম্পোনেন্ট যা ক্লাইমেট চেঞ্জের সাথে সম্পর্কযুক্ত, তাদের মাঝে উল্লেখযোগ্য পরিবর্তন লক্ষ্য করা যায়। যেমন কার্বন এমিশন। লক্ষ্য করা গিয়েছে কোভিড-19 এর লকডাউনের কারণে চায়নার কার্বন এমিশন 25% পর্যন্ত কমে গিয়েছে। এছাড়াও সাম্প্রতিক কিছু গবেষণায় দেখা গিয়েছে গ্লোবালি কার্বন এমিশনের হার কোভিড-19 এর সময়কালীন রেকর্ড 7% কমে গিয়েছে। নেক্সট স্লাইড প্লিজ। কোভিড-19 মহামারী এবং ক্লাইমেট চেঞ্জ উভয়ই পৃথিবীর জন্য সমানভাবে ঝুঁকিপূর্ণ। কোনো ক্ষেত্রে বরং ক্লাইমেট চেঞ্জের ভয়াবহতা কোভিড-19 কেও ছাড়িয়ে যায়। সকলের সচেতনতায় কোভিড-19 এর প্রিভেনশন যত দ্রুত গতিতে সম্ভব, ক্লাইমেট চেঞ্জের ক্ষেত্রে অবস্থার উন্নতি ঘটানো ততটা দ্রুত গতিতে সম্ভব নয়। পাশের কার্ভটিতে আমরা দেখতে পাচ্ছি কোভিড-19 অপেক্ষা ক্লাইমেট চেঞ্জ থেকে পরিবেশকে ও অর্থনীতিকে স্বাভাবিক অবস্থায় নিয়ে আসার প্রসেসটি অনেক বেশি সময় সাপেক্ষ। নেক্সট স্লাইড প্লিজ। করোনা মহামারীর এই সময়টি আমাদের জানান দিয়ে যাচ্ছে জলবায়ু পরিবর্তনের মতো বড় বড় দুর্যোগগুলো সম্পর্কেও আমাদের এখনই সতর্ক হতে হবে। প্লাস্টিকের বিকল্প ব্যবহার, কার্বন রিসাইক্লিং, নবায়নযোগ্য শক্তির ব্যবহার, ইউথ এঙ্গেজমেন্ট এক্ষেত্রে খুবই জরুরি। নেক্সট স্লাইড প্লিজ। জলবায়ু পরিবর্তনের দুর্যোগ মোকাবেলায় বাংলাদেশের তরুণ প্রজন্মরা বিভিন্ন ধরনের অ্যাওয়ারনেস রেজিং প্রোগ্রামের সাথে যুক্ত হয়ে কাজ করে যাচ্ছে। এমন একটি অর্গানাইজেশন হচ্ছে লাল সবুজ সোসাইটি। বৃক্ষরোপণ, প্লাস্টিক রিসাইক্লিং এর মতো কাজের মাধ্যমে তারা জলবায়ু পরিবর্তনের দুর্যোগ মোকাবেলায় ভূমিকা রেখে যাচ্ছে। এছাড়াও ইউথ নেট ও ওয়াটার এড বাংলাদেশও ক্লাইমেট চেঞ্জ নিয়ে তরুণদের সাথে কাজ করে যাচ্ছে। নেক্সট স্লাইড প্লিজ। আজকের প্রেজেন্টেশনটি আমি গ্রেটা থানবার্গের একটি উক্তি দিয়ে শেষ করতে চাচ্ছি। সেটি হচ্ছে, দ্য ক্লাইমেট ক্রাইসিস হ্যাজ অলরেডি বিন সলভড। We have the facts and solution. All we have to do is wake up and change. অর্থাৎ আমরা ইতিমধ্যে জানি কি ধরনের স্ট্র্যাটেজি ব্যবহারের মাধ্যমে আমরা ক্লাইমেট চেঞ্জের বিরুদ্ধে রুখে দাঁড়াতে পারবো। এখন শুধু প্রয়োজন আমাদের যে জায়গা থেকে উঠে দাঁড়াবার এবং সকলে একত্রিত হয়ে মাঠ পর্যায়ে কাজ করার। ধন্যবাদ সবাইকে।
Thank you, Sade Islam, Farhana, and Nazifa Babasun Bonna for this wonderful presentation. Now, we would like to move on to our panel discussion. For our panel discussion, we have two discussants. So, firstly, I would like to introduce you to Ajmina Rahman, a Chuhashi Fellowship 2018 recipient who is currently a doctoral candidate in environmental engineering at George Mason University and has been recently awarded the Provost Research Scholar Award. Since her undergraduate degree from BUET, she worked on her passion on environmental issues and sustainable development and also participated in many activities organized by Bangladesh Youth Environmental Initiative and Bangladesh Poribesh Andolon. At present, she is performing as an executive member of the Bangladesh Water Resources Engineering Forum, and she often writes on the environment, hydrology, and climate change issues. She is working on her research findings and she's working on a project funded by NASA as a part of her doctoral studies. And several of her research findings have been published in scientific journals. She will talk about the global pandemic and its impact on climate change at the webinar. First, we would like to know from Ajmina, due to Corona, we have been locked down at home for a while. A lot less pollution happened as a result of this. In your opinion, what do you think? Does the lockdown and pandemic have any impact on climate change?
Thank you for having me in this panel and for your very important question. So I think already we have listened to this wonderful webinar and knew about a lot of things that should be addressed. So the thing is, during the pandemic, we all were staying at home. We were not moving, and in general, the carbon emission was reduced to some extent because no transport as regular and no office, so everything was shut down. So it was basically kind of forcefully shutting down everything and thinking about the result. So yeah, after the pandemic, it was of a great great interest for researchers to see how it's impacting the climate change, or how it's going to be an impact if we continue this. So it shows that after the lockdown last spring, the carbon dioxide emission was decreased by 17% from 2019 average levels. And a new study predicts that based on this data, energy industry and mobility sectors in 2020, global carbon dioxide emission will drop by up to 8%. Though it seems like a way on achieving the Paris goal 2015, but it's basically a drop in the ocean of emissions, because we have already created a lot of extra carbon in our environment. So if we want to achieve the goal, it should be like a cumulative reduction in same magnitude for every year. So as for 2020, we got 8% of reduction. for 2021, if we have the same amount of reduction, it will be added to that, and it will be total 16%. Then in 2020, it will be 24%. So if these kind of things go on, then we can expect that we will be able to achieve the Paris Agreement goals by 2030, which is, I would say, this is very hard to achieve, but we can definitely try. I think this pandemic was a learning point for all of us. We can think about like how to move with it in future. Definitely, we will not be locked down. We don't expect to be like this for next couple of years, but we can definitely take it as a learning, and we can definitely try like how to reduce the emission and how we can use our resources in a like better way, that it would not harm our future generation or our future world, like to the extent that we are like not wanting this.
Thank you for your answer. As we know, the coastal areas are going to get affected directly by drowning and due to sea level rise. Is there any other risk those areas are going to be affected by climate change?
Yeah, that's a very good question. Definitely, I think in the presentation, that was a beautiful presentation, and mostly like it has been covered a lot. So I would just add to that, like with my personal experience in 2016, before coming to the US and starting my program, I participated in a research work led by CGIS, Center for Environment and Information Systems. So I used to work there as a junior researcher, and that was a very enlightening experience for me. I traveled, that was basically like about the food security in the coastal region. So I traveled, I think about 6 to 8 districts in the coastal region of Bangladesh, from north to from east to the west. And I have observed personally in that survey work or the experiment, the research work, that the people there living, they're facing problems, and it's rising. Like they can see that how it's impacting. So basically, when the sea level is rising, we think that it's inundating or like drowning the regions, the coastal regions, but it has some long-term impact, like food security, like social structure, like scarcity of drinking water, and like ecological imbalances. So that's how it is seen that the people there, they were producing the almond rice for long time, but due to the salinity increase, the production of almond got reduced, and the people there, they don't know how to make some other choices. So some areas, they are going under development, like people from Agriculture Institute, they are going, they are trying to teach them how to cope up with the situation. But it's like a very alarming thing that they are losing their land, cultivable land, and they are losing drinkable water sources. So it's going to harm them like directly. They can see in last 5 years or last 10 years how their resources are getting reduced. So it's very alarming for them, the people living there.
Thank you so much. Next, we would like to invite John Lees, co-director of MBFM. He oversees the all current and active project of MBFM. He is supporting Pure Bangla for last 3 years, and he's engaged in many civic engagement projects, such as voter registration, US Census, and climate change project. Sir, Priya Bangla Climate Change Awareness Program has really appreciated a lot for supporting us in this project and providing resources for many civic engagement. We would like to hear a little more from you about your organization and also would like to hear your experience working with Priya Bangla for last few years.
Wonderful. Good morning, everybody. Thanks for having me. Apologies for being so late. My granddaughter, who's 9 months old, showed up a little bit early, so I had childcare duties. But here I am. So it's been a real joy and honor working with Priya Bangla for the last few years. I'm really particularly excited for this program. In the past, it was often outreach for to encouraging people to become civically involved, and that's sort of an abstract or general thing. And now we're moving to a program area where I think the center of the problem is often in this country, the United States, but the impacts are felt globally, particularly in Bangladesh and other countries with large, near the seas. And so nothing I think could be more important. And I think it shows. Well, I'll use an expression. For years, it was said when the U.S. economy got a little bit sick, Latin America got pneumonia. And I think similarly, this pandemic showed that we're again all interconnected. That what happens in one country is happening in one way or another almost everywhere else in the world, and that we need global solutions. And I think getting back to climate change, you can see the excessive use and burning of carbon fuels and industry and what have you in this country has devastating impacts around the world. And unfortunately, people won't see it in this country until it's way too late for too many other people around the world. So it's really important. It's really that you all are taking up this work. It's really been great working with Priyal and others and Anthony to pull together the proposal. And I'm looking forward for both the next few months of this project and hopefully an ongoing relationship. The problem has taken, unfortunately, I guess since the rise of industrialization, has taken a couple hundred years to reach this point. And we've only got, I think, a few short years to try and make a major impact to avert the worst case scenarios. So again, it's been a real pleasure working with Priya Bangla, and I'm looking forward to seeing how this project continues and what we can continue doing together. Again, thanks for having me.
Thank you so much, Mr. Johnlis, for giving your valuable time. Today, we also have Arnila Guhnaluk with us. Arnila is a passionate storyteller and actor. She graduated from the University of North Texas with a Master of Fine Arts degree in Documentary Film and Studies. Originally from Bangladesh, Arnila did her undergrad in environmental science, but started her journey in the United States as a film student. She directed and collaborated in the production of several documentary shorts. She made a documentary, White Flows the River, that explores the lives of two families living in the coastal area of Bangladesh. Now, Arnila, hello.
Hi.
Thank you for joining us today. We know you studied in environmental science in Bangladesh, but you came to USA to study filming. What made you decide on that? And we would like to know your true calling.
Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me and for a beautiful introduction. I'm really honored to be here today. So yeah, when I did my high school in India. So when I came back to Bangladesh, I was like, I wanted to study environmental science. I was very determined about it. So I gave my admission and then got into this course in environmental science. And for that course, I was able to travel across Bangladesh. That was, I think, changed my vision drastically. Because of it, with my professors, I had a chance to go to Gaibandha and then be there, live there, talk to the people there, go to Shatchori, go to Chatkhira and Borguna, all those disaster-prone areas. I think that's how it started. And I was like, when people tell their story, I really look at their eyes and I'm like, they're telling it. I'm just not writing about it. I want to show that. So once I completed my undergrad, I was like, okay, I need to find a medium where I can actually visually show what these people are going through. Because we only read about them, we hear about them in news, but we never like actually see them in terms of visuals. So that's how I wanted to get into documentary filmmaking, so that I get to tell the truth and not just exploit the truth, tell the story in a more nonfiction way. And that's how, documentary came into my life. And I thought like, okay, this is the way I can tell the story of my country, of my people, and the people who are actually suffering. We say, okay, developed countries are like, there is exploitation, the excessive use of fuels and everything. But then who are the sufferers? My country, my people are the sufferers, the people who are in Shatkhira, the people who are in Borguna. Every year they are like prone to displacement because of this climate change issues. So that's how those two passion of mine, like, really caring for the environment. And I think it's high time that people should really like, pull their socks up and care for the environment, and just trying to blend those two mediums of speaking about the truth and showing it visually so people understand and see what those people are going through.
Wow, that was amazing to know. You have documented a film, Quite Flows the River, and we know that while doing that, you actually saw and experienced the real struggle of people who are affected by the climate change. Can you please share some of your live experience with us?
Yes, of course. So my thesis documentary, when I first decided, okay, I want to tell a story from my country, and I'm like, this is a story that I think people need to hear. People in this country as well in the United States need to hear what's happening back home. And when I went there, it was during my summer break. I stayed there for 14 days in their place so that I could actually be. And of course, it's not easy for them to speak in front of a camera. So I wanted to break that. We didn't film until like the first week. With the whole first week, I was just talking to them, just trying my best to be one of them. Like, just to understand their language or how they are kind of facing. It's not easy, what they face, every year. And when I interviewed my main two characters, my main two protagonists of my film, Saida and Jamal, their stories are devastating. And when Saida was talking about how she lost two of her kids, in like cyclone, in all this kind of, disasters, this is not what she was planning. Like, she lost her, she had to let one of her kids go. So just hearing those stories, and again, like, for me, eyes are so important, and she was like tearing up. Again, I had to kind of like, I didn't want to exploit her story. Definitely didn't want to do that. Definitely wanted to respect her point of view, and also made her go through the entire interview process. Like, okay, so are you okay with the story you're telling? Because people need to hear it. And just by being with them, and then like, but they're so welcoming. They're so welcoming with even whatever little they have. So yeah, it was an interesting journey. But again, I don't know whether interesting should be the word, because I myself have learned a lot. Like, even during my undergrad years when I traveled, when I was studying environmental science, I think when I was making the film, definitely has changed my view in a better way, I would say.
Thank you so much, Arnila. Thank you so much for your time and the information.
Yes, it's my pleasure to be here. And thank you so much for having me once again. And I hope you all enjoy my documentary, Quite Flows the River.
Yeah, thank you. So we have almost arrived at the end of our webinar. We'll screen Arnila's documentary, Quite Flows the River, at the very end. Please wait till then with us. Min, your mic is muted.
Oh, sorry. Okay. Before screening the documentary, we'd like to thank our guest speakers, Priyo Bangla Board of Directors, interns and volunteers, and especially all of you who are joining us and enlightening us with your presence from all around the world. Today's webinar is full of knowledge and interesting facts to know about climate change issues. At least we can say we have learned a lot of things about climate change that we didn't pay attention before. So yeah, it gave us deep insights into the topic and also revealed some interesting facts. We would also like to thank Professor Huff for telling us about climate change and youth involvement, Ajvina for letting us know about the impact of pandemic on climate change, and Arlina for sharing her life experiences with us. Mr. Taki Speaker Antonis, Mr. Joynal Abidin, Ms. Shahira Syed, Mr. Philip Karmakar, Mr. Anthony Piyush Gomez. Please take our deepest regards for taking out time from your busy schedule and joining with us today.
We would also like to thank Sadia, Farhana, Rahman, Shabab, Nazifa, Naima, Dina, Monica, Borsha, Bushra for their hard work and contribution. We want to thank all of our Priyo Bangla intern, volunteers, research and development team members who really worked hard to make this event successful. Also, thanks to Tarik Mehdi and Roti Chakraborty for working in the back end and making this webinar happen. We'd also like to thank our partner organizations, New Virginia Majority and ACE Collaborative, as well as our media partners, NRB Connect TV, FM 786, and Times 24 TV. We want to thank Arlington County and Arlington Arts for supporting Priyo Bangla initiatives. We hope all of you have a wonderful rest of your day. We will come back again sometime soon. Till then, happy holidays, happy new year to you all. And I want to let you know that our recording of this program will be available to all of our Facebook and YouTube channels. To find the links, please visit the comment section of the live webinar. Thank you.
And goodbye.
And goodbye. Okay, here we will show White Flows the River, the documentary.
So enjoy the documentary. Bye-bye. Sorry, we are having some issues with the audio. Please keep patience a little bit. We'll be back soon.